How's it going? I'm here to show you a few compound or crossbows today. And I know I normally would shoot compounds with you, but today I'm going to shoot these crossbows. And I actually have 3 different ones from my collection of crossbows. I used to have another one that was a little bit older that I sold recently, but you'll see some advantages and disadvantages to these 3 crossbows. The first one is the Carbon Express. What I like about it is it's short and compact. And it's also relatively inexpensive in comparison to the other 2 crossbows. You won't get quite as much speed out of it, but you're going to get plenty of speed for the job of a crossbow. Don't think of a crossbow like a gun, even though I hear that expression. I really don't like it. Obviously, there's advantages to crossbows in the sense you're already cocked and ready to hunt with, but you're not shooting 300 yards like a 30-06 or 200 yards or whatever. It's still something that we should be thinking about archery ranges that were within 50 yards normally. Now, this one has a rail, so you'll have to wax it with this rail lube. Like this is what most crossbows will require. And then you have a caulking string to pull up the string. I also have 2 other crossbows that are pretty innovative, and I would call them high performance crossbows. One is the PSE Tac Elite. You can see that it has kind of an M or an AR-15 look to it. You can buy the upper and actually attach it to a real AR lower. This one comes as a complete unit. And the big difference between this one and this Carbon Express is the fact that it doesn't actually ride on a rail. It actually shoots through a whisker biscuit, and you can wind it up and actually unwind it to remove the arrow. While this bow, you would actually have to shoot to get rid of the bolt, or put a dummy bolt in and shoot that. You couldn't just let down the string. Now, this is probably the best of both worlds. This is the Ravin. This has been the superstar of crossbows lately. This is the in thing right now. This is the R9 crossbow. It has all the great features of this PSE Tac, but in a much smaller package, meaning you can wind it up and unwind it. It doesn't ride on a rail either. It actually rides on these rollers, and it really shoots fast. All these crossbows also have other advantages and disadvantages when it comes to the bolts that you have to buy or arrows, depending on how you look at it. Like, this is definitely what you consider a bolt, while these are more moving towards being arrows. The advantage of the Carbon Express crossbow here is this arrow or bolt can be found at just about any given sporting goods store, while the PSE Tac arrow, normally you would have to probably special order. You're not going to necessarily walk into any old sporting goods store or even archery stores and just find this arrow. And you can't just grab any old arrow. It wouldn't be sturdy enough for the speed that's coming out of this bow. And then also this Ravin has its own proprietary bolt arrow type mechanism. What makes it special is the knock that engages the anti-dry fire mechanism. So I couldn't just put this in there and expect it to be able to shoot. It actually has some type of magnetic metal knock kind of mechanism that allows it to be fired. Ravin does come with a really nice scope with it that you can actually set up based on the speed of the crossbow. So I have this set at around 395 feet per second. So this is a really fast crossbow. This one is also really fast at around 400 feet per second. And again, all these bolts and arrows are around 400 to 425 grains. So they're definitely sturdy, heavy arrows. The Carbon Express is a little bit slower, but it's still shooting quite fast in comparison to a lot of compound bows. You get around 318 feet per second with this bolt here, which again is over 400 grains. So you're talking pretty decent speeds. A lot of compound bows wouldn't be able to do that. Now, there are some compound bows that I do have that are high performers, like a full throttle, that would easily sling that arrow at the same speeds at 70 feet per second, over the 70 pounds, I mean. So let me go ahead and shoot all of these through, and you'll kind of see some of the pros and cons of these different crossbows. We'll turn on that Pro Chrono. Now this Pro Chrono is a little bit slower reading than some of the ones I've seen at the archery shops that use the green one. I'm sure if you guys have been looking at chronographs, you know what I'm talking about. So, you know, when they say 400 feet per second and then you get 395, sometimes it's due to factors like which chronograph you're using, in addition to other setups. Anyway, let me go ahead and shoot this Carbon Express. Now, this one you'll have to, like I said, you're going to have to use this cable. You have to put the footrest on. You usually set your weight on it as well, and that'll help keep it in. Now here you can see the disadvantage of a crossbow in comparison to a compound bow. A compound bow I'd already be shooting right now. I'd already have my target. You know, obviously you're going to have this already set up when you go hunting, but you're not going to get a second shot for the most part very easily. So I could have probably shot 2 or 3 arrows by the time I get this all set up. But the big advantage is when you're hanging out in the woods, this is already ready to go. The other thing I like about this Carbon Express is how handy it is. You can see it's very easy to maneuver. And again, 300 feet per second is going to get the job done. You need to be really careful when handling crossbows in the sense of this string. You get your fingers in there and this accidentally shoots, you know, you're going to lose a finger or worse. The nice thing about this particular crossbow is that the safety mechanism has already engaged when I pulled up the cable. So I'm going to keep my fingers back behind. You can see that I put the index vein down. And the nice thing about this one is it just slides into place. And once it slides in there, it's ready to go. Then I'm going to pick it up. I'm going to take it over to our chronograph. I'm going to engage the safety to fire. You know, obviously, you get a lot of accuracy out of a crossbow. We had 318 feet per second. And like I said, that's more than enough for a deer. Now, high performance crossbows do hit around 400 feet per second. But you got to understand, a traditional bow is shooting under 200 feet per second. That's killed plenty of deer. And typical compound bows, that would be a really, really good speed. Okay, now on to the PSE Tac. The thing you're going to notice about the PSE Tac automatically is it's huge. This means that you're not going to necessarily be stalking in the woods. I can feel it out here just by holding it. It's pretty, you know, pulling it out, you're starting to use a lot of muscle to hold it up. So you're going to have this on some type of stand and some type of, you know, gun rest or sticks to hold that up. I think you can get a lot of accuracy from this just because of how long it is, as well as, so that is probably going to be a pro. I'm not really big into this scope. I'd probably want to get a better scope if I wanted to really see really long ranges out of it. You can see it has a D loop on it. And then on this side is a release mechanism, but you can't put it into safe mode. So that's one disadvantage of this. I like the fact that that other crossbow went right into safe. You'll notice there's a cable that comes off of it. And then you just push it and make sure it gets into the D loop. This one, you actually load the arrow in first, and you notice it has a whisker biscuit. I've seen some videos where people actually set up their PSE Tac with a drop away, but I don't think that's necessary. I like to make sure that it clicks in good. I like to make sure that this arrow is easily rotatable in the whisker biscuit. And now you can begin to cock the arrow. So you can hear it. Now you might not like that sound. You can actually push this button here and take that sound away if you're trying to do it silently in the woods. The big advantage of this, though, is you can actually lower the arrow from a cocked position and not have to shoot it. The other crossbow from Carbon Express, or just a typical crossbow, you would have to shoot it or shoot a dummy arrow. So anyway, I'm going to go ahead and cock this up. This is the heaviest of the 3 arrows. We're getting about 420 feet per second, or 420 grains out of it. So you don't want to overwind a bow, so I just wait until once that stop. I'm annoyed for the safety aspect that the fact is it's still on fire. So I'm going to slip it over to safe, just like you would on an AR-15. And then I'm going to take it over to the chronograph. Again, I want to keep my fingers below the strings. I'm going to my mark there it was before. You can still freehand shoot it. It's just you'll lose its accuracy. It also has a bubble in the back, which helps if you really want to get into some serious long-range performance out of it. We hit 393 feet per second. We've seen also up to 394 feet per second. So you can see this is a true high-performance crossbow. Actually, most crossbows, when you start talking about 400 feet per second, you're talking about high performance. There's really only a few bows that really get in beyond 400 feet per second. When you start talking about 440 feet per second and things like that, like the Venom crossbow. But for the most part, these are about as fast as you normally would find. Let me go ahead and show you the Ravin now. The neat thing about the Ravin is it feels like it's the best of both worlds. You have the small compatibility of it. I mean, look at this. Easy to hold. I like the scope on it. It actually tells you 20, 40, 60, or whatever for the distances. It also goes into safe mode, and it also is easy to operate. Again, it also uses a winding mechanism. You actually need to use this initially, and it can actually be set up to be left-handed or right-handed. It's on both sides, which is cool. You only got one option on the PSE Tac. It's actually a magnet, look. Which is pretty neat. Now you just got to cock it a little bit, unwind it. And then this slips down. You can see instead of being a cord, it's actually a strap. So again, it has a lot of the features that the PSE Tac initially had, but improved on. You want to hear it click, a dull click, or a click. Then you know that the string's actually engaged. And then you can begin to wind it. Again, you can push this button and take the sound out. And you can also lower it, which is a really great mechanism. Wonderful features. You notice I didn't put the arrow in before like I did for the PSE Tac. But I could conceivably do this in a tree stand a lot easier than I could the PSE Tac. They say you can continue winding with this and not cause any harm, but I feel like once you've reached the end, you should just go ahead and stop. Now you can put the arrow in. Again, the really cool thing is look how small that is. That is unbelievable. I mean, this bow didn't get anywhere close to that. You're going to put the index vein down again. Here's the roller. So instead of having a whisker biscuit, it actually has these rollers. And again, I want to keep my fingers behind, or not in front of the, not anywhere in that path of that string as best I can. Keep everything pointed away and let it ride up. Now, unlike the Carbon Express where I get to set it in there, you actually need to hear it click before you know it's actually engaged. And the anti-dry fire is ready to go. Until you hear that, it's not engaged, so it's not engaged still. Then you hear that dull click. That is when the arrow is actually ready to be shot. While with the carbonate air, I could just slide it in and it was good to go. The safety mechanism has been engaged, which is a wonderful feature, safety feature. Again, look at this. Incredible. Put it into fire mode. This is again, and we got 393 feet per second. So we got the exact same speed between these two different crossbows. Granted, the PSE Tac arrow was probably another 20 grains heavier. So it was shooting a little bit heavier arrow faster. But the other arrow is still 400 grains, so they're both heavy arrows, or moderately heavy. Not super heavy, but moderately heavy. The Ravin R9 is actually the little bit slower model. They have an R15 also that actually goes faster by about 20 to 30 feet per second, but you're paying an extra $500 for, which I didn't think was necessary. I think this is the best of both worlds between these two different crossbows. The Carbon Express, its main advantages is it's inexpensive to buy, and you can find arrows anywhere. That said, the other advantages of this bow is just look how narrow it is, how fast it is, and the winding feature is really cool. The PSE Tac is a really cool crossbow. I don't think it ever quite got the notoriety that it deserved, but the main problem with it is just it's so big. Again, it depends on what you're trying to do with it. If you're talking about truly just a hunting element, I think both of these crossbows win out because you can run around in a blind or tree stand efficiently. If you're just after long distance shooting and you're going to be in a very comfortable stand or where you can move around, this would probably be this would be plenty fine. And then maybe there is opportunities for even a little bit longer distance shooting from it, just because of the platform setup being longer. But I've seen a lot of videos where you get some excellent accuracy out of this bow, even out to 100 yards. But again, you're not going to be really shooting a deer that range. You should be thinking of it as just a really accurate 50-yard and less hunting element or bow. So anyway, all these crossbows are cool. I think the Ravin's amazing right now. It definitely is deserving of the popularity, and I'm glad I own it. I'm glad I own all of these, but this is probably the one that's going to stay with me the longest, and these may be heading down the road, even though I like them still, just for the sake of space in the house. At least that's what my wife says. Anyway, thanks a lot, and I hope you enjoyed the videos. Take care. Bye.